Okay. So we'll be doing this lamb with black bean sauce, and we'll be doing a coconut jasmine rice. Along with doing the dishes, there are two other things that I want to show you guys other than the basic recipe. One, I'll show you how to vary it using fish instead of lamb. And I also, along with the basic flavors, I want to show you guys how you can add vegetables if you wanted to the same stir fry. The ingredients for the dish is fairly simple. It's getting most of its flavor from the black bean sauce. Now the black beans, these are these Chinese black beans. What gives them their distinct flavor is they're actually fermented. They are salted and fermented. And for the most part, I've seen them in two varieties in the store. You either have the black bean with garlic or you have the black bean with chili oil. I mean, the difference obviously is this one is spicier than the one using garlic. And a note in this particular recipe, I'm not adding any additional salting. I've seen some recipes that do suggest with the black bean sauce to add some more soy sauce. I mean, I feel it's fermented with quite a bit of sodium. I mean, at least to taste, I find that this is manageable. But if you try the recipe, try what I'm doing and feel that you need, additional salting, then you can add in up to a tablespoon of soy sauce. So the first thing that I want to show you guys is I'll get the jasmine rice started. And for this, up to a point, I'll be tilting the Instant Pot because the Instant Pot is high. It actually does not you can't see it super well. I mean, you can't see the inside of it well. So, here's coconut oil. The first thing you do is you turn your Instant Pot on, and the function that you turn it on to is the saute mode. And just to mention, if you want to do the same recipe on the stovetop, you actually can. It's the same process other than the fact the rice will be cooking here closed under pressure, whereas on the stovetop, and I'll tell you the differences. So we start with about a tablespoon of the coconut oil. I mean, it doesn't show anything at the moment. So here I have chopped scallion whites. They go in first. And then I'm adding in ginger. The two things that are very important to do for this recipe is, I mean, it's cooked very, very lightly, but you do want to toast the jasmine rice once I make this flavor base, because that is how the rice is actually absorbing the flavor of all of this and, as it cooks along. And in terms of this, you really aren't browning the onion, the aromatics. You're just cooking it enough so that it cooks through. Well, this dish is simple. It's actually a very fragrant dish. So here is jasmine rice. And by the way, if anyone has the same question on ingredients, for most Asian ingredients, I visit HMart. And, I'm able to find, yes, most things. I mean, in fact, other than Asian ingredients, I actually find their produce section pretty good. And what I've found, I mean, during the craziness that we're dealing with, especially on weekdays, they're not as crowded as some of the grocery stores. That was just my tip for. So the rice goes in. Now, a note here is, so I'm toasting the rice. All I'm doing is sort of stirring it into the aromatics. If you're using the Instant Pot, what you want to do for every 1 cup of rice, you add in a little more than 1 cup of water. If you're doing it on the stovetop, for every 1 cup of rice, you want to add in 2 cups of water. Because what happens is the Instant Pot is cooking it with the liquid all sealed. So you need less liquid while it's cooking. So here in terms of the toasting, there's not much that happens by way of color or what have you. What you will see if you're doing it is it starts, you start smelling the scallions and the ginger, sort of they get more aromatic, and you do want to watch and make sure that, they don't turn too brown. But the rice itself, like right out here, it still is quite white. This rice is getting 2 layers of coconut flavor. Obviously, we use the coconut oil to cook it, to toast the aromatics. I also add in some coconut milk as a part of the liquid. And again, irrespective of what method you're using, when you're measuring the liquid for something like this, you have to factor in the coconut milk as well. So again, here, I'll just be adding in about 3/4 cup more of water because I'm adding in 1/2 cup of coconut milk. So together it's 1 1/4 cup. While it's fairly intuitive with something like coconut milk, let's say you had a recipe that had something like tomatoes or what have you. Tomatoes have quite a bit of water in them. So you again need to factor that in when you're doing this. So now I'm hitting cancel here because I don't want it getting overcooked. So here I'm adding in about 3/4 cup of water. I can see some of y'all are cooking along. I'll pause for a second just to make sure we are all able to, follow along. So again, for the coconut milk, I'm not married to any particular brand, but I most frequently end up picking this one. Oh, it's called Chaco, but I identify it by the container. If you go into Trader Joe's, their coconut milk is quite good too. And what I like is I don't have to deal with the can opener because, in fact, because usually you have the note on the coconut milk. If you've had it sitting, always shake it. I gave this a good shake before I started the class because what tends to happen is the creamier part sometimes sort separates from the more watery part. I mean, it's a warm day today. It shouldn't happen. But... So now I've splashed in some coconut milk. You're adding in a little bit of salt. Yeah, so I'm closing the Instant Pot and now putting it to the rice sort of function. Now, those of you cooking along, how are we doing? Everyone's okay? All right. So I have the lamb here. The first thing that I want to do to it is the cornstarch that is listed in the recipe. You shake it on. Now, if you're using the eggplant, there are a couple of things you can do. I mean, yes, you can do the same thing, but you can also add in, like you can break an egg, coat the eggplant in that, and then add the cornstarch. Because since the eggplant isn't quite as moist as meat or fish, what you sort of want to do is you want some way of having this adhere. But this said, you know, the cornstarch isn't really making it super crispy. It's just, if you'll see as we do it along, it's meant just to give it some body. To coat this, I find it easiest to use my hands. You can certainly use a fork. This is up to you. So now the order of how we will work this is I will heat the oil until it's really very hot. I'll add in the ginger and garlic, then I'll add in the meat, and then I'll add in the black bean sauce and the cooking wine. The mushrooms obviously get added with the cooking wine. And a tip that I had for people is if you want to add in more vegetables, what I've done here is I've sliced a few carrots, like I've cut them very, very thinly because carrots take longer to cook than the mushroom. You're welcome to add it along, and suggested vegetables to give this dish more body if you wanted to would be things like snap peas, carrots, broccoli, basically anything. And the other thing that I've seen done, what can be added and folded in right at the end, this way you don't have to vary what you're doing, is something like greens. So you can have something like bok choy or baby spinach, you can finish, and the dish is, of course, fine as is. So,
Rinku, question asked, how much garlic are you adding to this recipe?
I'm adding in about, so it's like about 4 cloves of garlic that I've minced up. And if here again, I'll be ending, so let me qualify that. I'll be using the black bean sauce with the chili oil. It's less garlicky, so I'm adding quite a bit of garlic. If you're using the black beans with the garlic sauce, reduce the amount of garlic, unless you're a huge garlic fan. All right. So actually, I want to make sure. Okay. So I'm turning on the stove. I'll move the computer in a second so that you guys can see it. So the veggies that I'm adding are not in the recipe. I'm just adding it just to show you guys that you can vary.
Okay, the question was, are you adding the garlic when you're adding the ginger?
Yes, yes.
And you
So, and you'll see me do it. And okay, I see you guys are following along. So, okay, got it. Yep. So I have the same identical thing going on in 2 pans. One I'm doing with fish, one I'm just doing with. You know what? I'll do that later because fish is less forgiving, so I don't want to multitask with that. I'm adding in ginger now. And I'm adding in garlic. You don't want to actually brown this. You just cook it just a little bit. And now I'm adding in the meat. So as much as possible, you want to try and do this in a single layer. And I have the flame on like a medium kind of heat. So you let this sort of sit on one side for a good 3 or 4 minutes. So now I do turn this. And this should let you turn it fairly easily. If it doesn't, give it a couple of more minutes. And it's not again like it's going to be very brown, but so at this point, I'm adding in the mushrooms. And of course, any other vegetables if you want to add anything. And now you again give it 3 or 4 minutes. Well, not 3 or 4, more like 2 or 3.
Rinku, there was a question. Can you use flour instead of cornstarch? Rinku? Rinku?
Next, I'll be adding in the black bean sauce. So this is the black bean sauce. It is fermented and it kind of has this whatever sort of funky smell. The Chinese five spice gets sort of added in now. And I'm using just a generic commercial blend, nothing fancy about it. So I got this off whatever, the spice I'm trying to see what, it's a McCormick. And next you add the rice bun. What you do with it, now you reduce the heat to low. And what you do with it is you use it also to deglaze your pan so that you get all the ginger and the garlic that's sort of stuck to the bottom of this. And once I've done that, I'll be adding in a little bit of water. Now, in terms of this dish, doesn't have much of a sauce. Should you want to make it saucier, what you want to do is you can add in more water than I'll be adding in. You can add in a little bit of soy sauce a little bit of cornstarch to the sauce to thicken it. So I'm adding in about half a cup of water. And now you cover it. And you want to let it cook for about 5 minutes. And here the length of time will, basically you're cooking it so that your meat gets tender. So if you really manage today, I got lucky. And just by the way, a tip on cutting your meat thinly is if you want to freeze it and have it partially frozen when you're cutting it with a sharp knife, because that gives it more texture than just your plain flat kind of unfrozen meat. So now, oh, I think. No. The cilantro is at the end. The other pot, and I'm doing two variations of this. So it's the same identical thing. One is with meat, one is with fish. Yeah, the cilantro obviously is a garnish. You add it right kind of at the end. So the greens of the scallions are the garnish for the rice. I'll show you guys how I do that. And so this is what this still looks like. It has some ways to go. In fact, let me prep the cilantro as we speak. It's about 2 or 3 more minutes. And my rice, by the way, in the Instant Pot just got done. If anyone heard the beep, that's what it was about. So I'm now turning this off right here. It's very smoky, so we have to give it a minute or two. So if you have the cilantro, you want to chop it kind of finely. I'm doing that. So now the cilantro goes on the dish. Now, how finely or how coarsely you want it? I mean, there is some sort of flexibility there. What I'm doing here is I actually am releasing the pressure from the rice. And this is what it looks like right out of the pot. I mean, it just looks white. So I give it a good stir to sort of mix in the coconut and stuff. And the green scallions that I had chopped here go on top of the rice. And I'll plate it for you guys in a second. Yeah, this is kind of what it should look like. I mean, again, you can plate it. There's no method to how you want to plate it. But so this is done. And, you know, I'm happy to see what everyone's looks like and answer any questions.